everyone, darling viewers, it's Jen here at Check Her Joy. This time I'm reviewing Enchanted Ever After by Shanna Swendson. This is an adult contemporary urban fantasy novel, so it centers on Katie Chandler, who is completely not magical, can't do magic, magic doesn't influence her, but she lives in a world where magic does exist, and in particular works at a magic company that produces spells that wizards use. Katie's special because the magic doesn't work on her, and so she can see through tricks other magic users might be using to influence other ones. So like if they're trying to hide a clause in a contract, Katie can just see that. Okay, Enchanted Ever After is book 9, so if you have not been reading the series, I suggest starting with my review for Enchanted Inc. book 1. I'll post that down in the description below, because this is going to spoil that. So, book 9, we have Katie and her fiance, Owen Palmer, finally planning their wedding. But of course nothing is like simple in Katie and Owen's life, so they can't just be planning a wedding. They also have to save the magical world, such as their lives. So there is a group out there in New York that is trying to expose magic so that everybody knows that magic exists and that there are wizards who might be trying to influence or harm them. And so Katie is trying to keep it a secret. To protect herself, but also to protect Owen, who is a wizard. And Owen is like the child of two of like the greatest villains in their history. So even though he has continually proven that he's good and like saved the day, like the wider magical community doesn't trust him, and so of course Owen also becomes an object of suspicion that he might be part of this plot, because that is always what happens, because the magical community does not learn their lessons apparently. So this book takes place in 2007, so it's 2 years total from the start of book 1 starting, even though it's taken like a decade in like the real world. So we're going back to 2007 and that technology, which becomes important because there is cell phones and cameras, but they aren't like the highly sophisticated camera phones that I'm filming this YouTube video on. It's a bit grainy, it's a bit fuzzy, you don't always capture things, there's blur. So you can't always tell what's happening, so they're trying to expose magic by capturing it, but sometimes, like, the evidence isn't that conclusive. So there's still a little fudge room. But there's also these blogs and websites that are tracking magic use and potential magic and trying to expose it and be like conspiracy theorists, except that there really is magic in this world, so it actually is a threat that they could be uncovering something that's supposed to stay hidden. Katie goes undercover to infiltrate one of these anti-magic communities, one of these groups that is trying to blog about it, to find out what's happening, because it seems like there might actually be a wizard trying to plant things for these groups to find, and obviously that is something Katie would like to stop. Also throughout this book we have Katie and Owen's wedding and trying to plan that, and them trying to like plan 2 separate weddings. So the one is a secret wedding in New York, in the magic company that they work at, because it's this gorgeous castle-looking building. So they want to have the real, actual, normal wedding with their family and friends. 2 of Katie's roommates are in on the secret, but the third one isn't. So like they're helping plan the secret wedding, but not. They can't let the other roommate know there is a wedding in New York. So they're trying to plan this extravagant thing with all this magic. But then there's also another wedding back in Texas that they're going to go have with Katie's family because they can't all travel to New York. It's too expensive. Not really feasible. So there's actually 2 weddings being planned, which is really complicated. It's not something that Katie is particularly interested in. Like, she wants to marry Owen, but she isn't like the kind of person who's down for the details of like which flower or which shade of white the tablecloth should be. She's letting her mom plan the Texas wedding, and Gemma and some of her co-workers plan the magical wedding. So, wedding stuff runs amok. This book has a lot of recurring characters and a lot of references to things to happen during the rest of the series that are just like gently touched on, which is great, having reread all of them in the last year to get ready for this book. But if I had, and they're done in such a casual way that even if I hadn't reread them recently, I think I would have still like been like, oh yeah, that's a major thing that happened, I remember that. I remember who Mimi is, her boss from her original job that she left, who was a nightmare. So when these characters show up, it's like a cool nod to like the entire series. The one thing I didn't like is that we don't see Katie's family. They don't show up. She kind of talks about her mom and her grandma and her brothers, but like we don't actually see them. Like I wanted both weddings. We only get to see the one. We don't get to see Texas, which I felt a little bit cheated on with this book ended. I'm like, but there's another wedding we've been teased. I want to see that. There's also still plenty of magical hijinks happening in here. They're trying to keep the secret from Nita, her roommate that came from Texas most recently, doesn't know about magic. But also she's hanging out with Gemma and Marcia, who both are dating guys who are magical, and so they're in on the secret, and they've been like in Katie's plots to save the day before and put in danger by villains. But of course the best bits of this are Katie and Owen just being Katie and Owen when they're not trying to save the day and just having like small moments and small dates and trying to figure out normal stuff is always the best part of the series. I love Owen so much. I think that's it for the final book for non-spoilers. If you haven't read book 9, you should definitely do that. I love this series so much. It's one of my favorite magical series, especially with the adult contemporary like chick lit feel to it. So I recommend it. It felt right in line with the rest of them. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It falls in the middle of like favorite books over the whole series. It's not my favorite. It's not my least favorite. It's just kind of like, it's a good ending. Somebody described it as like a roller coaster ride, this entire series of like Katie and Owen's relationship and all the magic stuff, and this is like it coming back into the station. Like it just glides back in there. We wrap it up. Everything feels concluded. So that was great. There is one downside to the series, which is like it's had 4 last books before. I think book 4, book 7, book 8, and now book 9. And so getting to the last book again doesn't always feel like it's going to be the last book. Is it really? Even though Shanna Swendson said that this is going to be her final book for a while. She wants to release a short story with that Texas wedding. I would love to see it. But it does feel like it's the rest of the series, and with the crazy adventures and stories that they go through. Katie and Owen conspiring and trying to figure out who they let in on their plans. Katie and Owen kind of working apart sometimes, and when they need to work together. There's one like added part to this book, which is that Katie is working in security, so it's like literally her job to go investigate this stuff and like protect it, and she doesn't need to come up with an excuse to do it. But it's also not Owen's job to do it at this time, and so she's definitely taking more of the lead in this, and enlisting Owen when she like needs to. But also there's some parts of this where Owen has to like step back and accept that Katie's in charge, and that she knows what she's doing, and having to trust her when things could be dangerous. And Owen doesn't necessarily do well with that. But it also still felt very much like their characters, and I like the shifting of the balance from when Katie first started and didn't know about magic and wasn't sure about all the things they could do, but now she's got confidence in herself and Owen's abilities and their relationship and her friends, both magical and not. There were still plenty of twists about like who was behind the anti-magic group, who's trying to expose magic, people getting used, and like Katie trying to keep everything calm and like sort everything out. Like sometimes there's a couple of characters she runs into that are also magical immunes, and she decides to let them in on the secret, even though other people might have said not to. But Katie's like, I know what it's like to like have people think that you're crazy, and that's why they're interested in this anti-magic group. If we tell them that magic exists, they can be helpful to us and not be trying to help expose magic. So Katie really trusting this world and knowing how it works. 4 out of 5 stars, solid read. It's an excellent finish to this series, and it's got its happily ever after, and I love it with that fairy tale feel to it that this series has kind of had running underneath it. Yeah, let me know in the comments below if you have read this. Hopefully you have, although I try to keep this review free of spoilers. Love it. I love Katie and Owen. So, peace out. I love you guys, and keep reading. Bye.